Bum ba da da dee da da dee da 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 dum. Bum ba dee da da ba da da ba dum. Bum ba da dee da da dee da da dum. Bum ba da dee da ba da da dum. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to this roundtable edition of the Tuesday Telecast. This is something that is near and dear to my heart. If anybody knows, kind of, my language is music, and music is an atmosphere for a story, or may even be a story in itself. So, we are here to talk about how those stories, and specifically movies, gather community. It might seem like a simple concept, but do you ever really think of it, or do you just go? So, welcome. Let us know in the show notes if you are, or not in the show notes, but in the comments if you're here, where you're calling in from, and any questions that you might have for us. So I'd like to, without further ado, welcome Jennifer and Carrie, the team at Connected Pictures. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lydia.
So what do you think of all this? This is a table, and I just said a thing. I said, I talked about music, and I talked about atmospheres, I talked about stories, and I talked about movies, and I talked about community. And I'm thinking, which is the first, like, what's the top of that? And really, it's the community, because the rest of it would exist in a vacuum if it weren't for the community.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right? No audience, no movie, really. No people connecting at a level that's a dialogue with the film happens unless they're there. And also there's a real big connection with the amount of people there and resonance amongst themselves in the theater that people don't actually even realize, which is an interesting concept because you can tell the difference when you are in a packed theater or if you're in a empty theater with a few people, and there's a big difference in feeling and depth of what's happening on the screen.
Yeah, yeah. And then Leslie just wrote in, excited to watch how the effort grows. And that's kind of another thing about it that people do connect to, whether it's the progress of the movie itself, where we live in uncertainty and what's going to happen, or we live in our heads, but there's this thing unfolding in front of us. Or if you're actually involved, you get to actually see what's that movie what's gonna happen with that. And but yet there's this thing that's been going on for a long time, where sometimes we get like a trailer for something and everybody gets all excited because, boom sis ba in the trailer, and then there might not be as much boom sis ba, or it might be the same boom sis ba. you know uh there's something about that, where why is that sometimes the trailers just don't seem to quite go with the movies? What's the story with that?
Who's going to start, Carrie, you or me?
Go ahead, Jennifer. I'll let you start and I'll come in.
Sometimes the trailer, oh, good morning.
Hello.
Mitsushiro. Sometimes the trailer is the movie. And obviously trailers are put together after movies are shot. And the way screenplay adaptation goes, if Lydia and Carrie and I each read the same book, our screenplays would be completely different. Our adaptations of that book would be completely different. And so similarly with trailers, that's a big studio call of what I want to see in the trailer and what I don't want to see in a trailer, and a lot of considerations of like spoilers and various other things. But at the end of the day, it has to cut together and it has to be compelling. And in Lydia's words, sis boom ba worthy. And that's far easier said than done. And I think at the end of the day, what makes it most compelling is the material of the picture.
Yeah. So I'll just jump in on that. The movie itself is what happens, right? So when you're trying to make a trailer, or when a trailer's made of a movie, it's a sentence about something that's 2 hours long. So if you're looking for uh, engagement, which is the idea of a trailer, right? Not only do you have to go through figuring out what you don't want to give away and what you want to give away, but you have to check the source material. Is that 2 hour movie really a 2 hour movie, or is it a sentence? And a lot of sentences happen. And I think this goes to community in a way, because I believe that when you make a movie and you do it from that standpoint, where everyone involved is a co-creator, is part of the community. Yes, movies are a place where a lot of people are working on a project at once. Even a small movie has a lot of people. And when those people are pulling on the rope in the same direction, as Jennifer and I have said before, um, you the vision of that movie comes through. Now, of course, like Jennifer said, there's a source material, there's the blueprint, which is the screenplay, and does that move along? Is that a full story? All that stuff, happens. But I think most of the time, a screenplay is there. It can be fulfilled into a great movie for whatever length of time that is. But a lot of times people aren't pulling on the same rope. They're not made in community. They're made in ego. A bunch of different egos, going in all sorts of directions for their own particular thing and not serving the vision of the movie. And actually, even if you think about it a little bit before that, like if the screenplay is lacking and people come in and get involved, and they don't address that because there's ego issues and they just want to make something or whatever, it's all community really. If you get to it from the source of the material, to that's taking away opinion. You might like a certain movie or a certain kind of movie or whatever, but then in community you can also say, hey, this thing's short. That storyline doesn't work. This character is not enough. This is, but if you're guarded with ego and you wrote something and it has to be what it is, and then the other people involved aren't pulling on the rope in the same way, no one's going to say anything. They're just going to go along and make a 2 hour trailer, a one sentence piece. And that we see, I think, a lot. I think we see a lot, and that's to me is community. That's lack of community. There's a dysfunction in that.
Definitely, definitely. And the way the whole machine is set up in Hollywood, the studio has different criteria for trailers than the director does. And I've been in that meeting where there's the trailer that the studio put together and the director's like, what the hell is this? This is not at all what my movie's about. And the studio's like, too bad, bro. That's
right.
we want people to watch the movie. This is what we have to do. And just the wording of that, of like, what do you mean this is what we have to do? What you guys just cut together is kind of not really about the movie. So like, I don't understand. And therein lies this very critical juncture of, we cut something together to bring people in the theater, and someone else saying, yeah, but that's not what my movie's about. And the studio saying, tough shit, we're doing it anyway. And then the viewers, the audience gets into the theater and they're like, what the hell is this? This isn't what the trailer And so what does that speak to vis-a-vis alienation or lack of inclusion or connectivity of that's kind of like a bait and switch kind of scenario, right? But when money is the only thing that's being listened to, there goes the moral compass, you know?
There's also, it kind of talks to the, what you're talking about, talks to this cultural thing that we have going on, and to some level in all sorts of places in the world, but there's something in the United States that goes on, which is home of Hollywood, where what we feel and our value itself is based on what somebody tells us. And so it just goes to follow that here's my movie, this is my maybe my heart and soul, and yeah, we're just going to put up something else for that movie if we take it at all. And we're just going to put up a different story because your story isn't validated without us. And then it goes out to the community, and the community has something to say. And whether they know the backstory, because it's just a story, they give it a new life. The community is where it gains the life. And some movies, and I imagine people don't know this, but a lot of movies never make it to the screen to get that life. And it's not because they're not worthy, or that it wouldn't be the best movie ever for you, the best experience, the best it's if somebody else is telling you what's going on. And that's different from viewing a story, from immersing yourself in a story where you go in, you figure it out for yourself, you go out. But if somebody else is telling you a different story, then they're kind of saying that, hey, you can't handle this other story, or you're not going to pay us for this other story, or we don't want you to see this other story. When you put the community first, you get the stories. And isn't that, like, more respectful? Isn't that what it's about, is getting the story and coming together and dancing together and singing the songs and doing and feeling the pathos and having the outcry? Isn't that what it's about?
No, it's about money.
Yeah, in that system.
Well, there you go.
In that system, it is about money and ego and power and control, and I can't do, but I'm going to tell you what to do, and it yeah. So that's that, and that's the antithesis of having a dialogue with a movie and an audience, and the
Yeah.
power of an audience to make up their own mind and have an experience that's different than what the story might even set out to be. So there's something so beautiful in that that gets lost in this money driven storytelling. The audience can pick up on something that is wasn't set out by the filmmakers to make, but has great insight, because sometimes when you're creating something, and I'll just speak from my own perspective on this, you're not trying to do something, you're just creating what comes to you. It sort of goes through you, and in that you're not even picking up all of what it might be saying. And there's a great piece in a Martin Scorsese documentary about Bob Dylan, where someone is telling Bob Dylan, your song meant this to me, and he says, oh, I never thought of that. Like, there's
Yeah.
more to it.
Right.
Right, there's more to it, and that's great, thank you for telling me that. Because it's not closed off. It's not a trailer to get you in the theater, to get your dollars and let you leave, whether you like it or not. They want you to like it for the money, but it's movies aren't about that. They're about a dialogue, and that when someone else has insight into it and gets the opportunity to share that. That's a dialogue. We're not sitting here talking. We're each three giving our perspective on this, our insights into this idea. So, I mean, a movie's really no different, you know, but it's the community that matters.
Absolutely. And you raised another super interesting point that I've always kind of been fascinated by, which is when I was working at the working with students at the American Film Institute, we did a wonderful short film. Their graduate theses were short films, and one of them was about a martini. And the guy, of course, these are graduate students, first time directors, whatever. So we do the thing. He cuts the thing. We screen the thing. And he was, he was young, kind of ego driven, and I'm in LA and I'm a director. And yeah, dude, you're a student. Just absorb the learning. At any rate, after the screening, somebody went up to him and said something to him along the lines of the Bob Dylan comment of like, "Oh wow, I watched this," and that he expressed his takeaway from this short film, and this guy went ballistic. You missed the point. That is not what my screenplay was about. You like blah 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 blah, and those of us who were older and wiser and like did this for a living were like, you got to calm down, man. There's nothing wrong with, it's not an attack, again. So meanwhile, back at the point, when ego gets involved, whether it's money or it's ego, creativity's out the window. And creativity and ego, although they proliferate tightly interconnected in the world, in another way they're non-intersecting sets, because creativity is something that allows for anything, whereas ego, of course, dictates what's going on. So that's another element of this connectivity of, it's not the connectivity of a bunch of people saying, "Oh my God, you're amazing." It's the connectivity of stimulating, in my opinion, stimulating people's minds and emotions to evoke whatever. I mean, they just sat in a theater for 2 hours. Isn't that like good enough? And they found it engaging enough to say something about it. So what's the downside,
Some
Yeah,
movies will change your outlook on everything. Some movies will change your mood, and some movies you're just there for the feels and the atmosphere, and that's okay. But
yeah,
there's something that Leslie said, which is that each view is accurate, right? And yeah, absolutely. What we believe is what we, and if you believe that this is what my movie is about, this is all, and it's all about you. And you're saying when you write something, it comes from you, but it comes from not just you in a vacuum in general. I mean, I tend to write in a vacuum, so I'm, in a way I'm talking nonsense, but I'm not. It's the thing, it's the input that from my community that speaks to that thing that I write. And when you're just a single point in there, I can only watch movies that are like this, or you have to interpret the movie the way I see it. It's once you write it, you got to let it go. Yeah.
Totally. As with anything, once it's articulated with anything, let it go. Put it out in the world and let it go to see what it creates.
absolutely. Go ahead, Jennifer. Finish.
I
Sorry.
was about to say, Carrie, I know you got
Oh
something
yeah,
brewing in there. Let's.
I got something brewing. Why would anyone be upset that your movie resonated with them in any particular way, even if it's a negative way? That means that it stirred something in them, right? Everybody doesn't have to love stuff. Like, this is a misnomer. This is a Hollywood baloney thing. I mean, it makes no sense. You're working on something that has a chance to resonate with whoever it resonates with in some way, right? And gain a community around it enough to support the movie. Like that's it. That's the point. But if
Yeah.
you come at it like it has to be seen this way and it has to be loved this way, and the idea that a movie is accessible to everybody in the world, 8 billion people, is insane. This is a Hollywood thing, even though they're very successful at reaching millions and millions and millions of people. But they're also, and I mean but Hollywood fail 80% of the time to do that, if
Hmm.
not more, right? So you have to factor in the reality of things, right? And for a filmmaker, what does it matter what people say about what you're doing? It means nothing, because if they're talking about the movie, and I'm not talking about all bad stuff. I'm just saying your movie's having a dialogue. It has the opportunity to have a dialogue if people are talking about it, whether they see something different in it than you thought you were doing or something else. It doesn't matter. The point is to work on the dialogue, because this is where the power of a movie is, in community,
And
and
that's
that
the life.
dialogue.
Yeah.
That's the life. It's the energy. It's the, I mean, what you're describing is the pith and the essence of who we are as humans. And when you remove one part of it, it it becomes weird, and we may judge it. We may take it on and fix it. We may, but that's the life, and that's is how it goes out to everyone, and how it's perceived, how it's enjoyed, how it's bantered with, how it's railed, that's the life.
Yeah, yeah, and I think sorry, Jennifer. I'll just jump real quick. um, I think you guys just mentioned it, right? Like you don't get the outcomes are not your business. Like how many people see your movie and all that is not a filmmaker's business. Your business is to create something that may have a dialogue, a resonance with people, because it comes from your heart, from you having your unique perspective shared with the world. And beyond that, what can happen, and why would you care who sees it or doesn't see it or how many people or all that? I get it. There's that you want what you say to have meaning, but when you add the outcomes or specifics or this and that and put metrics on it even for yourself, that's just not what is. What is, it just is. And you've made your movie. If you get it out there, there it is. Like,
You
what do
know,
you need beyond that?
we haven't had any questions yet, but there's kind of a question that comes up in a way, or from this point, that everyone is at a different level of awareness, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. How does that affect how we're connecting and why we're connecting to this community?
How does define that?
The fact that everybody's awareness is at a different level.
Ah, well, I mean, does it not? What leaps into my mind that it speaks to is relinquish your control of obsession with an outcome. It's not about, it's like my mantra of all roads lead to Rome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Relinquish your need to control things, because you're not in control. Whether you accept that or not, you're not in control. And the more you try to be in control, the more you thwart yourself. It's counterproductive to community and awareness and everything we're talking about. And yet it's an integral part of human nature, right? It's this little head game we play with ourselves. If I know what's going to happen this afternoon and next week and 6 months down, I can relax and draw a deep satisfying breath.
And is that all you want in life?
Well, yeah, and if you get the outcome you've anticipated, somehow that's vindicating. Whereas if you don't get the outcome it's what we read into it, right? Oh, I'm vindicated. They saw my point. They got my screenplay. They love me. They love me. Yeah, no, they don't, dude. If the outcome is different, it's okay for it to just be different. You don't need to do anything with that. Let it be, because those people had a different and get whatever. But this based on our level of awareness of ourselves and how we perceive ourselves and our place in the world around us and the beings with whom we share the world, has a lot to do with this outcome based illusion of control. Yeah. And that speaks to everything: how we live our lives, the motion pictures we make, the books we write, the music we compose. Everything is tinged with that. That's like a fulcrum point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and to Leslie's statement, yeah, that's true. That's very true. There's levels of awareness. But you can't. How can you ever figure out where those are or who has what if you're putting a film in a theater and people are streaming in to watch it, right? I mean, so the best, I think, to follow what Jennifer was saying, the best you can do as a filmmaker is to pour your creative and co-creative, very important word in films, co-creative efforts
Yeah.
into a film with energy of, we'll say, love for what it is, and everybody pulling on the rope in that direction. If you and there's no way to prove this, right? But it doesn't matter, because if you go into something with your ego put aside and you rally everyone in the process to put theirs aside, and you come together pulling on the rope in the same way, that energy is happening. It's happening while the film's being made, and it's going to go into the screen, right? It's going to go into the show. And so you can't, what more do you need? If you actually do that, for me as a filmmaker, that's it. That's the fulfillment. What happens beyond that is whatever. Now I want to explore that. I want to have community around the thing, and it's not to hear what they say and say, "Oh, that's great. You're such a cool guy," or whatever nonsense there is. It's that then we can actually all move forward. I can become a better filmmaker by hearing what people see, and not to do
Yeah.
what they, like Hollywood. Let's do a market focus group and let's find out what people like. It'll never be that for me, but it does open insights like the Bob Dylan thing to, oh, well, I could add that into a next movie, and I could put it in something else, or it just becomes part of who I am as a person, as a human, trying to move forward to be, uh, closer to who I actually am, my authentic self every day. That insight just moved me forward, right? And this
Yeah.
is the point.
Well,
And
there's
then I benefit from that as an audience member because I get more of you, regardless of whether I got the point of your screenplay or not. I liked it,
right.
and it made me feel something. And on that momentum, you do another one, and I get more of you. Everybody wins.
And you do love to get, you're not there to get the feedback. You're there to be in that experience. Life is a participatory sport. So however that participation comes to us, it's going to change our awareness. And that awareness being changed is based on us. But when there's an environment and there's stimulus, and that's what a movie is an environment. And it's an environment that people can, on a mass level, experience. And hate and be triggered by, or whatever it is. It's not. So again, it's like that outcome based thing where maybe we aren't there to hear the comments, but isn't there a consequence to that? And isn't that what it comes down to? There's a consequence, and we're here to experience. And there's consequence to us experiencing. And there's consequence to us not experiencing, because maybe other people around us are experiencing, and then that consequence will come to us from the side. There is all these things that really, when you talk about them, they come down to life and us experiencing them when we create something, and us experiencing something when we get input from others, which might be inspirational or might be aspirational or might be like, hell, I'm going to prove them wrong. It may be anything. There's just all that consequence is our life. And isn't that kind of one of the pith of the movies that we just kind of really want to get back?
Yeah, that's it. That's absolutely it. It's the whole thing, right? It's awareness. It's opening people to not, awareness, sort of like Leslie said, but just the fact that they're alive. A movie makes you feel alive. And like we go to the movies to be scared, to cry, to laugh out loud, to hum along with the song, whatever it is,
Please.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Like we are there because that movie, and it is the beauty of movies for me. I don't compare it to other art forms or whatever in terms of what it does, but a movie for me takes me to another world, becomes who I am, and teaches me about life for myself. Like, what does my life mean? And you guys know me. I mean, I see the world like a movie. I live like a movie. I live like an audience member watching this movie while also writing and editing the movie at the same time. And and of course that's my uniqueness. But that aside, just going to a movie does something to people. It gives you this pause, this moment of emotion, this thing, because it draws you into the lives and the story that's on the screen in a real way, I mean, go Jennifer.
I was thinking as you're talking, just the experience of being in the theater, of when there was a little jewel box theater near my house in Los Angeles, and it was a movie theater where the 1960s Anthony and Cleopatra movie with Elizabeth Taylor premiered, and it was redone like being inside of an Egyptian mastaba. Somebody bought it and just redid the whole thing, and it was so cool, man. And it was just down the street from my pad, and they had removed every other row of seats, so there was like tons of leg room and whatever. And I screened so many movies in that theater, and I worked in that industry and like whatever. But the magic of being in this theater, not only the decor, of course, but sitting in the theater when it was dark before the movie started, and you can just like you can feel everybody around you. You can close your eyes and you can feel them. And you can hear people eating popcorn, and people are whispering. Nobody's like shouting, and there's not phones going off and whatever shit's going on out on the street. But just this incredible sense of like this community thing, all these people, you could feel the anticipation, right? We're in a dark room. There's 300 people together in a dark room. Nobody's panicking and everybody's in anticipation. And to that point, I screened LA Confidential there. And there's a scene in that movie where James, the tall guy, I can't remember his name, they're in his kitchen and he shoots him point blank range, turns around and shoots him in the heart. And the speakers were in the floor. And that whole sequence was very unanticipated. Nobody, it meant like, whoa, what? Like that came out of nowhere. And with the speakers in the floor, the gunshot was under your feet. And everybody in the movie theater was like, blah. And there was also that sensory thing. We're so used to like sounds around us. And when it was in the floor, it made this, I mean, words fail me, this collective visceral shock.
So visceral.
Unforgettable.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's part of this whole, and I think that, now everybody streams and like, I mean, I'm not here to pitch four wall in theaters, but four wall in movies, but I'm just saying we're missing out such a huge part of that experience with streaming and watching things on our computers, and not that whole that's a big part of the experience that kind of isn't really on anymore.
It kind of removes it doesn't, what you described removes this wall between us and our audience, right? But yet that wall between us and our audience is in our head. It's a construct, just like time, just like all the things that we do to make sense of things, and what we view, what we control, what we're part of, what we're not. And in the end, you're always a part of it. You're always a part of it. Whether somebody decides that you can't participate in the way that you want to, whether you are shocked by the way in which it comes down, we're always a part of it.
Yeah, there's no escaping that. No matter what's going on here, it's much more holistic than we perceive, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think, Carrie?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree 100%. I think also that is a power of movies to create these understandings. And I think it's happening for people all the time, even through their streaming devices or whatever. I agree with that theater thing, and especially what you said, Jennifer. I grew up outside of LA. I've been going to all the theaters, the Chinese theater, the Cinerama Dome, all of these old theaters in the West Side, and there's theaters, and just these beautiful old theaters, and the anticipation of going in, just outside of them. Sometimes, I've seen a few films in those where you have to line up to go see the Egyptian. You got to line up and you can't get in. You're waiting for the next screening because they're packed, right? And you're waiting and people are streaming past you. And this is life. That's life. It's happening right there. Someone just saw the film. They're streaming by you, and you're anticipating seeing the film with all these other people who are also in line, right? And there's a visceral setup in that situation. But I think with a movie, it can happen in through the streaming and all these things, because when it's there, right, and even when it's not fully there, when egos aren't part of it, but say like the situation of the sound of those gunshots, in Jennifer describing the scene, even if they're not through the floor, although that is so great of an example of actually, if everyone's pulling on the same rope, you could figure that out and go, oh, through the floor would be a really great way to get people to do it. Let's do this in this theater. But even beyond that, even if they just come through your earbuds and you're watching on your phone, there's still such uncertainty and so filled with what life is about in that movie. Like, that's a moment in time that can happen. We believe that happened at that time, this guy just shot somebody.
Yeah. That's that willing suspension of disbelief. It's not always so consciously willing, but we do suspend it. We wherever we are, we will feel the stuff. And then when something suddenly gives it to us in a way that we might normally feel it, or it's not a way we normally feel it, but we feel it differently because we feel it through our butt bones, and we feel it through our seat. It puts something else in there which is a little bit even more shocking. But regardless of that, if we have crappy speakers, if you're in, and there's really not a theater out there that has crappy speakers, but there's, different layers of it, right? Wherever you go, you're gonna experience that and feel it because of that with suspension of your own disbelief. If you're otherwise, you're not there. Like, why bother going?
Yeah.
So here's the rub. Here's the thing. Back at human nature and the point made earlier about at our different levels of awareness, we live in fear of the unknown and uncertainty and what's unexpected. We don't understand that, Carrie's, you got my pals here are familiar with the un and the unknown is the same on and unlimited. We just refuse to be at ease with uncertainty and revel in the unknown and the unexpected. Instead, we need to be small and scared of all of that. And yet, in a movie theater, all bets are off. And so when you put that together, what does that speak to? What that speaks to is, in the whole concept of suspension of disbelief, whatever, the bottom line is we go into a movie theater not knowing how the movie's going to end. We're uncertain about how good it's going to be or what it's going to be, or like whatever. Unexpected things we totally accept, like, wow, fuck, that was crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason
Right.
is because we're in a theater, or we're streaming something, and to us, that's not life. That's fiction. So we're cool with all that because we're separating ourselves. Oh, yeah, but those are actors. That's a story, yada, da, blah, blah, like whatever the big loud voice is saying. But it is life, and it is real, and it is germane to us. And so it's so easy for us to like make that separation. Oh, yeah, I'm cool with all that shit because I'm watching a movie. And yet in your own life, you're a big hot mess because you can't. So how does that element become woven into our life for us to comprehend just that you're experiencing something that has three huge elements that you can't cope with in your day-to-day life, that you are embracing in something else.
So many of us don't comprehend that.
Touch you, or it's not part of you, but hey man, it is.
Yeah, and you're actually living it, because there are studies that show this, but when you go into that kind of a situation, your brain doesn't know the difference. So
Exactly.
are you triggering yourself? Are you actually feeling a little more trauma? But look how you stepped up to the plate and accepted it and thought new thoughts about it.
And that idea that you just raised, our brain literally doesn't know the difference between something we're imagining and something we're living. And so what about that takeaway of like, wow, all those things happened in that movie, the unknown, uncertainty, unexpected. I had a blast. Wow, it's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I venture to say too that the ease at which some people are able to do that is the community sitting around them in a theater. Like the community's tied to this. Like and even if you're not, if you're just streaming, that's the nature of movies, what they've become from the days of only being able to have it as a community effort thing, sitting in a theater with other people watching this. You are disarmed when you're there with a bunch of people or I'll put it another way, you're given permission because someone else is sitting next to you who gave permission, and the other one across the room gave permission to sit here and believe this movie, right, in the way that you could live life. So that's the power of movies. I our dear friend Mitsuhiro is here, and he and I have been talking about this for a number of years now. And this is the power of movies, what movies can do, because no matter what it is, whatever movie it is, you you're there with that understanding, whether it's screening now because that's part of the way movies have always been, so that that's put into a movie. So even if you're by yourself, you're allowing yourself to watch that movie. You're giving permission to have those things happen to you, the uncertainty to happen to you all the time. A movie is That's why I think a movie represents life more, because you have no idea what's coming in the next frame of the movie, not even the next second, not even the next millisecond. I mean, it's like the next frame. There's plenty of movies that have someone walking down the street and then cut to some smokestack of a factory. You have no idea, and that may not come up until the very end of the movie or whatever. But the point is, it's uncertain. You don't have any idea why those things are happening or what they might be the next second. And so I mean, I agree with Daniel too. It raises vibration in a way when you open to that idea, and community helps that, because we are communal beings, right? We need each other for a lot of things, and maybe we just need each other to give permission to watch something that is totally uncertain, that might scare us, that might make us laugh, but we don't know when. That's life, right? We don't know when. I might get off this round table and something completely new is going to happen to me or with me or whatever. Like I don't I not might, that's going to happen
That
actually.
will happen. Yeah.
That's actually going to
Right.
happen. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how would either of you say that we can give permission for more, or invitation to more of this in our lives, more of the part of movies and community that we are saying we want?
To cultivate a level of awareness that's what's happening. Something that scares me silly in real life, I embrace boobing out to watching movies or TV or whatever, and to put the pieces together. You're watching something that's part of you, it's happening and you're cool with it. Ergo, since it's part of you, feel free to be cool with it.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
easier said than done, I don't know, but like it's right there in front of you.
No,
Yeah.
it's all subjective, right?
Right. And I
Yeah.
think too, we can like there's some practical ways about this, and that's what we're working on. Like there's some practical ways, because we can acknowledge fully the audience's power in this dynamic, between this dialogue between the film and the people, and that community is the power to create these movies. I mean, movies not made to sit in some room for some special people to be screened all the time just for them, right? A movie is made to have the dialogue with as many people as we can have, right? That's not putting metrics on it saying it has to be the best. It's just saying this is a communal thing, and we see the audience not as a number and a box office draw and a dollar sign. Like we see this thing as a communal thing, this art of film. this audience participation, and that audience doesn't have to be pandered to, doesn't have to be forgotten until they see the trailer and pay their dollars to go see the movie in whichever way they see it. They can be a part of the conversation from the start, before a movie's made, and after, because it's the conversation that matters most in this. And a dialogue is it's a form of conversation. I call it a dialogue because the movie is a one-sided sort of conversation. But you can take that into community and say, hey, how does this move us forward? How did that feel? What happened there? What's going on? Oh, what about making movies this way? How do you feel about that? Are you a
Yeah,
part of this? Do you want to be a part of it? Is the
that's the
thing.
life. It's the
That
life in it.
it's the life in it.
And are you the kind of person that asks those questions, or are you numb, living in your little invisible feedback loop where you don't question things, you don't ask yourself things, you just kind of, cruise on through?
And it doesn't have to be either or, right? I mean, you can start now. You can start now to just ask the first question. Might
Of course.
be, what do I love? What do I what
Yeah, but asking
what
questions,
feels
is that not the genesis? That's the starting place, asking questions.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, as someone who wants to say something, right? That's what I'm aiming for. That's the only thing I'm aiming for, right? Can you ask questions about this? And it's so twisted a lot with movies because of the way the system is, that when there's opportunities, and I've had these experiences, when there's opportunities for an audience to engage with the filmmakers, it becomes these silly questions that are usually moderated by the people who put it on, right?
Silly people.
Right, because they're talking about metrics and they're talking about other stuff. They're not talking about, like, they want to put you on the pedestal. They want the filmmaker to somehow say, like Jennifer's thing about the student, like, this is what my movie was about, and do you get it? And then people raise their hand. I understood that. I saw that with and like, why did you choose this color of a thing, a scarf, whatever, on the characters? Because is that because of this? And yeah, those things happen when you're making a film. You do try to do that. You make those choices, but that is not what the film's purpose is. To have a
No.
conversation about that, those conversations are perfectly fine. I have no problem. The behind the scenes stuff is interesting. I love it because it's like this colossal thing where all these people are moving around, buzzing around, and it's an interesting thing to do. But that's me, and I know other people are interested in that, and that's okay. But that isn't the dialogue that the film's having with you. The
No, that's a
dialogue the film's
false
having with
narrative.
you is, how do you see the world? How do you see this world that's a movie? Because each movie is its own little world that can be representative of what humans do, is representative of what humans do, no matter where you place it.
You might
Place it
see
in
it a
outer
little
space,
differently now.
right? You might see something a little different about the world, and that is what we're trying to do, is open up that discussion, right? Because that's the discussion that's not really available now. When you see something that's a little different in the world, what do you get to do with it? Well,
I think this is somewhat answering Daniel's question, but we could go into it further. Also, is there a real world example for deep questioning, deep questionnaires? And that's kind of what you are speaking to in the creation of this. But yet, a lot of people don't know what this is that we're talking about. Like what if there's a way for more of the stories to get out, and for everyone who wants to be a part of those stories, to be, because life is a participatory sport, no matter what or a sport, to can make up words too. We're in this culture, harken back to the beginning of this roundtable. We're in this culture that tells us, so this is your grade, and that's your value. This is who you worked for. This is your paycheck, and that's your value. And but this is saying, no, your value is in participating in this, and we want to participate in it with you. That's a little different. And a lot more aligned.
Yeah, it's different, and I suppose you as a filmmaker, as people who are creating stuff, you you have to get yourself to the point where that's what it's about, and it isn't about the other stuff. Like, and this isn't to say awards and things aren't great, and you can't relish them and be happy you got one and grateful that someone recognized who you are and what you're doing and all that. All that's beautiful, and money and all this other stuff that comes with this thing.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with any of that at
No.
all if you uncouple your ego and have no fear of hearing from somebody about what it is you were trying to have a dialogue conversation about in your movie. What, and that it doesn't have to have an answer. It's just that it's open to whatever they feel and how they feel. And if you're the person or people creating the movie are going to not be in that space, then you can't really have a dialogue, because you're not really interested in moving yourself and others forward. You're interested in hearing how great you are, and that the movie had such a great impact on me, right? Like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Daniel, I, I like to think that you're right. um, I like to think that this is true. What we really feel, as opposed to what we think we're supposed to feel.
And Daniel, could the investment be investment in our own erudition, in upping the ante on our own level of awareness beyond merely consuming content? That question that from yours that was just posted, nobody asks.
And yet, how do you know? How do you know that this is going to up your awareness rather than make you dumber, right? Are you going out there saying, well, I don't know what's real?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with all this is that it's true, right? There's, as you say, Lydia, cultural momentums, right? They're all over. Cultural momentum, the stories that are there, and there's a large story that is about what Daniel just posted in there. But
Yeah.
people who live beyond that are opening the way to change that for change that story, right? Because all this stuff is simply a story. And if you're not writing your own story, someone else is writing it for you, right? And if you're believing that story that they are writing, you give up your agency for your life. And if you and in that way, in the exact same way, another story, say a movie that someone creates from a co-creative space that's aimed to open you to a new idea, could come along and shift some of the cultural momentum. And this isn't audacity. This isn't, oh, so great. This is just truth. We tell stories. That's what humans do. You tell yourself 100 stories a minute, whatever it is. And do you actually understand what that story is and the power of a story? And so to use the power of a story to shift the storytelling for individuals seems like, of course, it's me, and this is what I do, but it seems like the way to it. Seems like the way to do that. Use story to change story. And I think humans have been doing that forever, forever, right? And I think it's in community that happens too. Because once a new story comes, then it rolls through the community.
Yeah.
Definitely.
In lesser or greater format, it rolls through. That was such a poignant thing that you just said, and it if it didn't knock it home for you in the audience, I don't know, maybe rewatch what Carrie just said. It speaks to the pith of the whole thing. And as I think that we're I got a little more stuff here from Daniel. You can use AI to create deep questionnaires and forms of emotional voice analysis that give +1 dimensions of consumer feedback. Trying to understand where that's going with this. But it does bring up the point that we do engage with AI for the things that we're doing in here. And there's all sorts of things that AI can do. Just like there's all sorts of things that our children can do, because I happen to believe that AI is our child, and that once it comes out, it has a life of its own. It is you can either participate with it or you cannot, but it has a life of its own, and we participate with it. It's just what we do. So as we go, as we wrap this up, do either of you want to say your hope for and your what it is that you love, that you want more of with connected pictures?
I mean, I'm happy to say that. I mean, I just said part of it a minute ago, but I'll add. I want to have conversations about the power of storytelling through movies with people who resonate with that, and to find those people to come along the journey of creating a movie from that space that honors audience and community before the movie's even made, and ventures into this thing where this dialogue of movie to people moves us all forward. And I'm talking about moving us forward as humans, so that we can understand new things and broaden our outlook and our awareness about what it means to be here as a human, that in this unpredictable situation, but comes from love, and that's it.
Wow, I have absolutely nothing to add to that. That's right on, man.
All you need is love. There's a thing I said to Carrie, which nobody would necessarily know, but I was asked, back last year, you could do one great thing. If you could, what would that one thing be that you want to do, like great for you? What would be that one thing that you would want to do by the end of 2025? And I said, write the film score for a movie that connects people and changes lives and raises awareness. It was so easy for me. That was what I wanted to do because I can. And there's what I love. What I love to do is create atmospheres. And I said it to Carrie, and in a nutshell, he said, "Let's go."
Yeah, I mean that yeah, right. I mean, and this is something you always ask, Lydia. What do you love, right? Yeah, like what do you love? Yeah, and the power of that situation. You're sharing that with me. It's more profound, I think, than even we acknowledge to each other, because and it's the same with Jennifer and talking about her work and her history of Hollywood and working in Hollywood and leaving that to help people move beyond it. Like all these things are interconnected and they are in the movie. They are there. They're not written in. They're just there when when it happens, because this is the power of a movie, is to open people to what do you love. And so when people are doing that together, right? I don't need any more. I don't need to say, Lydia, let me hear your compositions. I don't need to say, what have you done? What? I don't need any of that. When it's resonant in the heart, right? It just is right. It's just right. Because the working out of things, the actual working on the score or working together, that just happens. That's just the thing. That's not even the thing. It's a beautiful thing, but it's a give and take. It's I like this, I don't like that, I don't and when I say like, I mean that doesn't sit exactly with the vision that's from my heart. It's not really like or dislike, but that working out of stuff is just how that works. That's co-creation, right? But when you start from love and resonance, then those are just that stuff is it just happens. It's not a thing. Just not a thing.
It just
It just is. And
is.
yeah, and sure, experience, skill, ability. Okay, that has some input to it. That's true. But also, you might not have any. But if that love is so strong and that resonance with someone, you can create something great, or you can find the skill. So it was a very poignant thing, and the same with Jennifer when she has shared her history of the toxicity of Hollywood and actually moving people forward. We like here it is. Okay, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing, right? That's it. So anyway, uh, that's a beautiful thing, and I thank you, Lydia, for sharing that, and Jennifer for both. However we got to each other, which we don't know and we don't care.
Doesn't
Um,
matter.
yeah, that resonance is powerful, and it's moving this whole thing forward, and it's moving us forward.
Yeah. The power of community ultimately is the power of resonance. And it's not always a resonance that we like. It may, like, it may, like Leslie was saying, disintegrate into the comfort zone. But there's resonance somehow when you show up. So, and I appreciate you two for showing up here to this roundtable. We could go on for hours, but I'm recognizing that people's hour is up, and we may want to actually close the room and let life go on, and the stories go forth. So, with that said, thank you everybody in the audience, and you can connect with any of us, all of us, in the show notes. We've got the stuff, what we do with connected pictures, what we do in other parts of our lives, and if you have more stuff to say, please keep putting those notes in, because other people can continue to engage with you as we go along, and that's kind of the nice thing about this little community and this little story right here. So thank you so much. If you liked this, please hit like. If you are a subscriber or you're not a subscriber, please gently push the subscribe button if you are a subscriber, and consider sharing this with people who you think would be interested in and engage with you in the conversation. Thank you so much to all of the engaged people in the messages. There's so much good stuff coming up, and let's keep going forward. Thanks, everyone. Bum ba da dee da 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 dee da 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 dum bum ba da dee da da ba da 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 dum.